Meow meow.
Now?
Yeah.
Well, my name is Tad Lenczycki, and I'm the grandfather of
Aaron Lenczycki.
Aaron Lenczycki
What's her
and
name?
of course Tad Lenczycki. She asked me to make some comments pertaining to my past during the Second World War. So here we are. I was born in Warsaw, Poland in February of 1926, and in September of 1939 I was living by Poznań, which is a town 200 miles west from Warsaw. After the German attack in 1939, in September of 1939, they evicted all those non-Germans from that part of Poland which they claim always belonged to Germany. So I ended in Warsaw. And in Warsaw I was going to school and ride in town. I had to walk like 2 to 3 miles every day to school and then back, and the situation was rather rough. Then let's go back now to the Jewish questions, how that evolved. After the Germans took over Poland, they were gradually going through their process of Jewish elimination. So what they did first, they say, okay, everybody that is Jew, Poles or whatever has to be identified, and where, in the case of Jews, were those armbands that identify them as Jews. Then they went next step, which was saying, okay, all the Jews have to be living in a certain part of town, which they call ghetto. So everybody, of course, all the Jews move into a ghetto. Then, of course, the next step, they put the walls all around it, so they have them all pretty well tightly controlled. Then they slowly started to be removing them and sending them to different concentration camps, telling them they are resettling them. But the truth came out pretty quick, and so the Jews knew they were not being resettled, they are being sent to the concentration camp and outright killed. So they can say, well, if we're going to be killed, we might as well start fighting. So in spring of 1943, they started the Jewish uprising. And there is a lot of comments and movies and so on pertaining to that part of the fighting. And they were fighting for like good steady 2 to 3 months, and eventually the whole ghetto section was completely burned out, and people were either outright killed or moved from or caught and sent to the concentration camp. And about a year later, in July, August of 1944, the Russians were approaching from the east towards Warsaw. They were almost right outside of the city of Warsaw when the population of Warsaw rebelled and started the uprising, which was known as the Warsaw Uprising in August of 2000. in August of 1944.
And that wasn't just Jewish, that was everybody?
That was Warsaw, that was the whole population of Warsaw rose against Germans. There wasn't too many Jews left by that time in Poland because they were eliminated prior year before. So we started and we fought and fought for like 63 days, and there were a lot of promises made, and even at one time, actually 2 to 3 times the number of American, British aircraft came over Warsaw and tried to drop us a supply, but most of the supply went to Germans, not to us. And then, of course, they tried to negotiate it with the Russians to land across the river, and they were hoping that they could have a base from which to operate it, and and be flying closer to Warsaw. But of course, Russians refused from their own political reason. Well, and in the meantime, the time goes by, and the population was being starved to death, exhausted, shot at, and so on. And I mean, you could see street after street, section after section was gradually, taken over by Germans. And the people that who were thrown, sent to concentration camp, to labor camps in Germany. And finally, after about 63 days, we ran out of ammunition and supplies, food supplies, so we finally surrendered. And I was in a group that they took us to Germany, to the prisoner of war camp. And I had quite a thrill. The first day we got to Germany, to the camp close by Dresden, we saw like thousands of American planes, the liberators just coming over our head and going to Berlin. And that was quite a sight. I never seen so many, aircraft at one time. And I mean, the whole earth just shook from all those 1,000+ liberators. And the war, that was like October of 1944. At first they sent us to this Stalag, and there was, all nationalities were in it, English and Americans and French and Belgians, even a member of the Polish Armed Forces from 1939, from Narvik and from Africa and so on. And after about a month or so, they sent us what they call the Arbeitskommando. There was a group of 100 of us they sent to one of the factories by Dresden, and we're supposed to be, be working, loading and unloading the freight cars and so on. So, and finally the war came. It's part of Germany. In February of 1945, there was a big flyover and destruction at first by English and then by American of the town of Dresden. It was like, again, 1,000 planes came over, and just the phosphorus was just coming from those planes. Everything was burning in town. And I had a chance to, after the war, to walk through it, and wow, that really looked bad. And as the war ended, the Russians came to that part of Germany that I was in. So, of course, at that point here, it was our decision to go back to Poland. And so I went back to Poland and got to Warsaw. It took me about a month to get there because we kicked some Germans out, and they had their wagon with the supplies and so on. So we just liberated the supplies and told the German, keep on walking. I did what they did to all of us, so we didn't feel any problem. We didn't have any reservation problem doing that. So it took us about a month. We had like 2 horses and a wagon, a covered wagon. So it was like going west, except we were going east. towards Warsaw. And finally we got to Warsaw, and I walked through Warsaw. I couldn't believe it, because I was in the last group of people that left Warsaw, and there was a whole section of town still standing. But my understanding was, after we left Warsaw, they were deliberately burning and blowing up house after house, block after block, and then I stopped at one of the offices, and they were asking me, did I register for the army? And I said, army? You kidding? And I can see those Russians inspecting the Polish soldiers and so on, and personally, not only, which was later on verified, Russians deliberately stood outside of Warsaw till we surrender and so on, and then finally, after the first of the year, which was like 3 or 4 months later, they finally took Warsaw or whatever was left of it, and just kept on going. And they could have done it. Imagine Americans stopping outside Paris in 1944 and just waiting till the population of Paris was destroyed. I mean, unthinkable. But it wasn't for Russians. So I wasn't too enthusiastic to be in the Polish army. We have the Russians officers and so on. So even at that time, we were thinking, well, we came to Poland from Germany in the thinking that, okay, we'll be in the Polish and Russian army fighting Americans, but we'll probably cross right over on the American side, and that's it. But after I got to Poland, and I thought it over, and I said, hey, I would rather go west, go to American zone and join the west side now rather than waiting for later. So we just turned around. As a matter of fact, I traveled with the Russians all the way almost to the American zone in Germany, and crossed. And from there, then I went to one of the Polish camps in the northern Germany and said, hey, we have a big Polish army in Italy. You young kid, want you go there? So they gave me a pass to Brenner, which was right on the border of Austria and Italy. And I got to the Brenner Pass, and there was a big transport of ex-Polish officers going from Germany, prisoner of war camp, to Italy to join the Polish army in Italy. So the American asked that the officer in charge, say, hey, it's one of yours. So he told me, yeah, just hop right in. And that's how I got to Italy. And I spent about a year in Italy, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I traveled pretty thorough, and I covered Italy to the point that I knew probably Italy better than Poland, and even better now that I know even States. And after a year, then we went to England, and they demobilized us, and then eventually I went to school in London for a while, and then eventually in December of 1950 I came to States, to the state of Connecticut, and I was amazed to see all that traffic and all that congestion and all that. And, I mean, it was quite an experience. And that was like December of 1950. Following September, then I went to college in small town in Pennsylvania and stayed there for a year and just kept moving westwards till I finally ended up in Kalamazoo area, and of course Lake of Michigan. And basically that's really my story.
What boat did you come across?
Oh, I was lucky. As part of my settlement from the British, part of my discharge from the British Army, they would pay my transportation whenever I wanted to go. So that time here, I found my uncle, and he sponsored me to States, and of course I had a chance to come on Queen Mary, which of course we did. I had a chance to even come on Queen Elizabeth, but she was coming 2 weeks later, so I wanted to be in States by Christmas of 1950, so I have chosen to come on Queen Mary. And that was quite an experience. I mean, that boat was beautiful. And I know 2 to 3 days out, I was the only one in the dining area eating, and I had like 20 waiters jumping all around me because everybody else was sick. And I just stay outside and in my room, or the biggest one when you have these waves and so on, and you stay outdoors as much as possible. This way here you can make it. And how many times have you gone back to Poland? Oh, I've been to Poland quite a few times. To 1990 I wouldn't go because they were still under the communism rules, so no way would I go. And in 1990, if I recall, that was the very first time that I went to Poland, and then I tried to go almost every year or every other year to see the rest of the country, to see how it progressed and so on. And I went, my last time, if I recall, I was there in 2004, which was the 60th anniversary of Warsaw Uprising, and then out there, if I recall, I saw the 94, so that would be, yeah, Clinton, I think, was the president.
Yep.
I was going through Gdańsk, and I saw Mr. Reagan was visiting Poland, so I saw him in Gdańsk, and then I saw Mr. Gore speaking in Warsaw, and the president of Germany, and so on, and quite a representation. And but I have noticed that, you know, as time goes on, the policy to the financial situation and the general well-being of the country has been, you know, very slowly progressing, and I'm hoping to go out there again, sometimes probably maybe this year or next year at the latest. And no, I didn't have anybody in Warsaw, in Poland or in Warsaw at that time, but I met a guy out there, you know, just from he was also from the Warsaw Uprising, so then quite a few times when I went to Poland, I made an arrangements and to see him, and they kind of showed me around Warsaw and to see what the country looked like. And I've been quite a few times to Krakow, and of course I've been to Oświęcim, and even to have some pictures with me of it. But in a nutshell, that was rough. I mean, I was surprised that, you know, as far as talking the number of people killed and died. Originally, when I started in my company in August of 1944, there was like 120 people in my company. When we ended, there was only 30 of them alive, and out of those 30, 7, including myself, that were not hurt at all, and the rest of them dead, wounded, and so on. So I don't know. I was pretty lucky, and you know, to survive all that. And